Okay, good evening. Hello, everybody. It is time for a couple more chapters from Annihilation. That is Star Wars, the Old Republic Annihilation, that is. All right, let's just dive on into it here. We'll do chapters 18 and 19. I missed last week, but that's how things go. All right, chapter 18. Mr. Davidge found it difficult to focus on his work. In part, it was relocating to a temporary office on the west side of the Orbital Defense Command Center, an unavoidable circumstance considering that his old office and a dozen others on the eastern wing of the building had been reduced to rubble the night before last. The extra guards posted outside his door and inside his door and following him, even when he went home at night, didn't help, though he understood the reason behind the extra security. Most troubling of all, however, was the fact that he had personally been targeted for assassination. He'd always considered himself a mere cog in the Imperial machine. A key cog, to be sure, but not one who would ever garner the kind of attention the Sith Lords and Grand Moffs. That kind of. Sorry, I blew right through that. Okay. A key cog, to be sure, but not one who would ever garner that kind of attention. The Sith Lords and Grand Moffs were the face of the Empire. He was just the man who kept the shuttles running on time. He always believed he was protected by his anonymity. He wasn't really part of the war. He was just an analyst crunching numbers. That comforting illusion had been blown to pieces just as surely as everything in his office. While he might not bear any particular ill will to the enemies of the Empire, the attempt on his life made him understand that they hated and despised him. It was unsettling, disturbing, and it made dealing with the entire unpleasant business extremely stressful. He'd reviewed the latest report from the Imperial investigators multiple times, looking over the facts that had been gathered over the last 36 hours. Again and again, as he tried to make sense of the whole affair and prepared to give his own report to Darth Marr. The communications room they had set up for him in his temporary office lacked the durasteel door of his original office. It was separated from the rest of the room by a simple sliding door, but it still gave him the privacy he needed. More important, it also had a black cipher to make sure nobody could listen in on his most sensitive communications. He activated the cipher and waited for the holo of Darth Marr to materialize as he received and decoded the incoming call with his own cipher. I didn't expect to have to wait a day and a half to get a status report from you, Minister Davidge, Marr said to open their conversation. I didn't want to contact you until I was certain the conversation would be secure, he explained. The cipher in his old office had been destroyed, and there was only one other on Ziost, an inactive spare that had been stored in the maximum security underground vault beneath the ODCC. With everything else that was going on, it had taken some time before the engineers had hooked it up to the communications equipment in his new office. Cautious as ever, Marr noted, though Davidge couldn't tell if it was meant as a compliment, an insult, or simply an offhand remark. I have the details of the report, my lord, he said. I assumed as much when you called me. Realizing he was testing Marr's patience, the minister dived right into it. Hey, Vesper! How are you doing tonight? We're just getting started. We're only on like the second page. So, glad to see you come in. Thank you. Dived right in. None of the suspected terrorists were captured, he said, opening with the bad news. We believe there may have been as many as 6 involved, but our surveillance cams were only able to capture one of them. I assume you have authorities looking for this person? He, or possibly she, was covered head to toe in heavy clothing. Even the face was obscured by a hood and mask. So we have no leads, Marr said. We know the Ziost Liberation Front was behind it, the minister told him. They've claimed responsibility. What about our security protocols? How did they fail so completely? Actually, my lord, they didn't. The protocols were designed to keep enemy forces from taking control of the ODCC, not to prevent an attempted assassination. Even with all the damage, orbital defense systems were never compromised or in danger of being disrupted. What of the cipher in your office? Was it compromised? We recovered the cipher from the wreckage, the minister told him. The blast severely damaged it and triggered the core's self-destruct sequence, but at least it's accounted for. In the minister's mind, this was the best news of all. Had they been unable to find the cipher in the debris and ashes, they would have had to change the cipher codes, recalling all the capital ships equipped with a black cipher to be reprogrammed and synchronized would have reduced Imperial efficiency by almost a full % for the quarter, a loss ratio the minister didn't even like to contemplate. So what did you say here? Got 5 Soul books. Cool. Thomas Sowell, always a good read. This Ethnic America book is excellent so far. I have not read that one yet. I've only read 2 books of his. Trying to remember what the name of the first one was. The one I just read was Affirmative Action Around the World, I think is the name of it. And the other one was Social Justice Fallacies, I think is the name. It was the one I read. So far they've both been good. Highly recommend it. It has the same format as a. Okay, yeah. It seems like he stick to a pretty much the same format in all of his books, and there generally are not very many chapters. In fact, the book is like 50% notations. So I bought Social Justice Fallacies too. Cool. Yeah, that's a good one. Very good. Okay, back to it. So what is your recommendation going forward, Mar wanted to know. The overall impact of this terrorist attack on the Imperial war effort is negligible, the minister assured him. Resources and personnel amount to a loss ratio of less than 1,000th of 1%. I've already requisitioned troops to replace those who died during the attack, and repairs on the damaged section of the ODCC are underway. So you propose we should simply continue on exactly as before? I've ordered security for all the Imperial ministers to be increased, Davidge admitted. Again, the overall impact on the Empire is almost too small to calculate. Even at my highest estimates, Mar held up a hand to cut him off. Spare me the specifics. There's no need to justify your personal protection detail. The Dark Council is well aware of the value you and the other ministers contribute to the Empire. The compliment should have made Davidge feel good. Instead, it only reinforced his recent epiphany that he was not an anonymous bean counter. The implications of the Dark Council understanding his importance to the Empire were even more terrifying than the attempt on his life. The Sith Lords didn't ignore things of value. They fought to control them or destroy them if they belonged to someone else. Thank you, my lord. It's good to know I'm appreciated. Oh, here, hold on just a second. Let me read these two from. He describes the different ethnic histories like they were the people who went through affirmative. Yep, that he does. Also, grab the vision of the anointed, discrimination and disparities, and intellectuals and society. Those should all be great reads. So far, I'm very, very impressed every time I hear him speak. I know this is cutting into the reading, but people can just bear with us. Every time I hear Thomas Sowell speak, I'm very, very impressed. So I'm looking forward to reading a lot more of his books. Me too, and I'm a liberal. Oh, and we're in an ad. So I guess perfect timing. We were coming up to it anyway. Um, I'll just wait it out. Shouldn't be that much longer. It says 30 seconds. So we'll see. Okay, so in one spot it tells me I'm still in an ad, the other one it tells me I'm not. So anyway, I'm going to go on. Let's see. I lost track of where I was, though. Oh, it's good to know I'm appreciated. I think this attack should signal a shift in our policy, Mar told him. What sort of change? When this war began, we were the aggressors. Now we keep giving ground to the Republic. It's not a matter of choice, my lord. It's a question of resources. The Republic has more ships in their fleet and more soldiers in their army. Retreat makes us look weak, vulnerable, Mar continues, as if he hadn't heard Davidge. It emboldens groups like the ZLF, makes them dare to plot the assassination of top Imperial officials. This was one incident, my lord, but overall we have not seen a statistically relevant increase in anti-Imperial activities. You understand numbers, Minister. I understand the minds of our followers and our enemies. This attack heralds a shift in attitude that we cannot ignore. We need to push forward on several fronts, reclaim some of the worlds we've lost to the Republic, attack new worlds that have never before trembled before the might of the Imperial power. Davidge groaned inside. There was no point in arguing with Mar's orders, but the minister knew launching new campaigns of conquest against the Republic would increase the Quarter's loss ratio. I am sending a list of possible targets for analysis. Find where we can reap the most reward for our efforts, Mar told him. Of course, my lord, Davidge replied. You know what is best for the Empire. I recommend we use Moff Nazor, Mar said. You don't need to have him doing anything vital at the moment. Oh, you don't seem to. Sorry. Misread that. That's because he's an unprofessional, bloodthirsty sociopath with no regard for the lives of the enemy or his own soldiers. It's in italics, so it's an internal dialogue there. I will be sure to choose targets from your list that will make best advantage of Moff Nazor's unique talents, Davidge said aloud, though the idea caused bile to bubble up in his throat. I know you will, Mar told him. That's why I find you so useful. The first stage of the plan was a complete... Oh, we've switched gears here. The first stage of the plan was a complete success, Jace told the three fellow conspirators who had gathered in his office for the debriefing. I think we should celebrate with a drink. I agree, the director said. Master Nosteral, we have some Doran Pleach. A gracious offer, but I will decline. Suit yourself, the director said with a shrug. Theron, what's your preference? I don't have any Kriegi here in the office, Jace said with a smile, but I've got some of that Corellian reserve I told you about. Sounds good, Theron replied. It had been 5 days since he and Nosteral had leapt off the edge of the exploding ODCC building. They'd spent the first 3 of those days waiting on Ziost after local authorities closed all the spaceports and temporarily barred any civilian ships from landing on or leaving the planet. Not that Theron had minded at the time. He spent the days convalescing while Nosteral made some discreet inquiries into the Imperial investigations. Fortunately, the ZLF had been all too happy to claim responsibility for the attack, even though they'd actually had nothing to do with it. Its members were eager to take the credit for striking a blow against the hated Empire. With the Imperials focused on hunting down the ZLF members responsible, it was simple enough for Theron and Nosteral to leave once the spaceports reopened. Bad luck for any members who get caught, though, Theron had thought at the time, but the fate of a small group of radical anti-Imperials on Ziost wasn't something he could afford to worry about. After leaving Ziost, they'd returned directly to Coruscant to deliver the Cipher Core to Jace, who had promptly turned it over to the Director and SIS. Now, 2 days later, Theron and his partner were in the Supreme Commander's office, being waited on by two of the most important men in the Republic. We've already intercepted several key Imperial transmissions, the director said, bringing Theron's drink over to him once Jace was done pouring it. It appears they're ramping up their military presence in several contested sectors. Theron took a sip of his drink before speaking, savoring the warm, sweet liquid as it traced its way down his throat. If SIS is careful, we could use the intel to our advantage without the Empire ever suspecting. We're listening in on their encrypted messages. Sounds risky, Jace warned. We're closer to stopping the Ascendant Spear than we've ever been. I'm not going to let it slip through our fingers because we get greedy. SIS knows how to be discreet, the director assured him. Give the analytics team access to those transmissions. Let us run our scenarios. I'm sure we'll find something we can exploit without tipping anyone off. Jace was still reluctant. What do you think, Master Nosteral? A tool is of no use if you never pick it up, the Jedi told him. Master Zhou couldn't have said it better himself, Theron thought, raising a glass to his dearly departed friend before taking another sip of the delicious brandy. I promise we won't act on anything without your approval, the director added. Looks like I'm outnumbered, Jace said with a smile. Just be careful and don't forget what we're really looking for. We've moved into Phase 2 of our plan, he declared. We monitor the Imperial transmissions and wait for the spear to send word that it's coming into port. He turned to Theron. Once it's docked, you slip on board, slice into the spear's systems, program a dormant virus to disrupt the ship's hyperdrive and defenses, and get off the ship before it returns to duty. Sounds easy when you say it, Theron said. Can't be any harder than stealing a cipher, the director noted. Once everything's in place, we track the spear's movements and set an ambush, Jace continued. Hit her with everything we've got. During the battle, we send a signal to activate the dormant virus, and we take Darth Carrad and her ship down. SIS is still trying to pull together the necessary resources, the director cautioned. The spear will dock at a military space station, not some civilian spaceport. We'll need an Imperial military shuttle, proper IDs, uniforms, clearance papers. It's proving more difficult than we thought. Perhaps Theron's contact can help us again, Nosteral suggested. The old Tyan Brotherhood has been smuggling contraband onto Imperial space stations for years, Theron agreed. They know every trick in the book to get past security. Getting Tethys to set up a meeting on Ziost is one thing, the director cautioned, but I don't like you bringing her into an active role in this mission. Why not? Jace wanted to know. Can't we trust her? Yes, Theron said, even as the director answered no. Jace looked back and forth between them, but neither man was willing to back down. I've got this covered, Theron assured the Supreme Commander. Compared to getting the cipher, this job's a piece of cake. You had help getting the cipher, the director reminded him. I'm willing to accompany Theron again when he goes to meet his contact, Nosteral offered. Before Theron could object, Jace spoke up. Then it's settled. We let Theron and Master Nosteral reach out to this Tethys person. I'll have SIS keep working on getting what we need, the director said, just in case Theron's contact doesn't pan out. Let's take the Prosperity again, Theron said to the Jedi, ignoring the director's lack of confidence. Might as well travel in comfort. We can leave tomorrow, the Jedi agreed. The Supreme Commander raised his glass in the air. To the Republic! Theron and the director echoed his toast, and all three men downed what was left in their glasses. With the meeting over, Theron, Nosteral, and the director left Jace's office. The young woman behind the reception desk nodded pleasantly at the first two, then gave the director a glare so filled with venomous rage it actually made Theron shiver. You two go on ahead, the director whispered. I need to schedule some other appointments with the Supreme Commander. Maybe she's not going to be his third wife after all, Theron thought, as he and Nosteral continued down the hall. Theron, the Jedi said once they were out of earshot of the others, I have a message for you from Grand Master Satil Shan. Oh, Theron said, trying to appear nonchalant. Once again he wondered if the Jedi knew about their relationship. She wishes to speak with you tonight in her private chambers. Did she say why? No, she only asked that you not mention this to the Supreme Commander. Great, Theron thought. Mom and Dad are fighting. Isn't it fun being part of a family? Not sure if I'll have time, Theron said. Some things I need to take care of before we leave tomorrow. I understand, Nostoral said, but if you change your mind, Grand Master Shan will be expecting you. Okay, and that is the end of that chapter. I'm going to catch up on what you said here. I caught, though, in one just before we went into the ad where you said, me too, and I'm a liberal. A Conflict of Visions sounds excellent too and is highly recommended and is supposed to explain the differences between how liberals and conservatives see the world. Okay, that sounds like a good one. I might have to read it pretty soon myself. Um, right now on that stream, I'm reading the Hiram Key and I am enjoying it, although its chapters have turned out to be insanely long. So I had to cut back to one chapter a night. So that's going to slow me down. And then I've got one other book on the docket before I get to anything else. And then I'm going to read The Republic. And so I've got it planned out for a while yet. So, all right. On to chapter 19. The last time Theron had spoken with Satil had been on Tython. That meeting had been his idea. He'd snuck into her private quarters to tell her about Nagano Zhou's death. Zhou had been her master and her mentor, and she deserved to hear the news in person, not over a holo or in some report. At the time, he'd pretended not to know she was his mother, and she made no mention of recognizing him as her son. But he had the sense they both knew the truth, though neither was willing to acknowledge it. This time would be different, Theron decided. He was tired of playing games. Well, most games. Despite being invited, he was still breaking into her apartment. Part of it was the challenge. He just wanted to prove he could do it. But he also didn't want others to figure out that he and Satil were related. Shan was a common surname, but it was unusual for an SIS field agent to meet in person with the Grand Master of the Jedi Order. It wasn't like he was being followed, but on the slim chance someone saw him at her door, he didn't want anyone to start making connections. Theron was convinced his life would be a lot more complicated if their relationship went public. Probably bad for her, too, Theron assured himself, doing her a favor by breaking in. The Jedi still officially condemned the emotional attachments of marriage and children. If people found out Satil had a son, they'd think she was a hypocrite. If they knew she spent her whole life acting as if I didn't even exist, Theron wondered, would that make things better or worse? Disabling the building's perimeter sensors and scaling the wall took only a few minutes, and it gave Theron a chance to work out his injured shoulder. He'd been favoring it for the past 5 days. It was time to see how it was healing. By the time he swung his legs over the railing of her third-floor balcony, he was satisfied that he'd make a full recovery. His shoulder was a little tired, but otherwise felt good. Another week and it would be back to 100%. The sliding glass doors leading from the balcony and into the apartment were wide open, despite the chill of the night air. Clearly, Satil was expecting him. As he stepped into the apartment, she rose from the chair she'd been sitting in. She was wearing the simple brown robes of a Jedi, her hood thrown back. Her shoulder-length hair was brown with some faint silver-gray highlights that gave her a regal air. Theron didn't see much family resemblance in their features, but he wasn't looking that hard. Her skin was surprisingly smooth and clear, though she was close to 60. She looked at least 2 decades younger. Is that because the Force flows through her, or is it just good genes? Thank you for coming, she said. Please come in and close the door. Theron complied, sliding the patio doors shut as his eyes took in his surroundings. The apartment was fully furnished and decorated. Nothing overly lavish or opulent, but it was obvious more than a few credits had been spent. I thought the Jedi didn't believe in material goods. The apartment was furnished when I moved in, Satil said, and it's important to make visitors feel comfortable. Do you really think less of me because I'm not living in an empty hut with nothing to my name but the clothes on my back and a meditation mat? That's how Master Zhou lived most of his life, Theron said. He was never Grand Master. He enjoyed a simpler existence. I have certain expectations and obligations that I must meet, even if they go against what I would choose for myself. You wanted to see me, Theron said, changing the subject. After a brief pause, he added a sarcastic, "Mother." You have every right to be angry with me, Satil replied, her voice calm but also tinged with sorrow. I don't expect you to fully understand why I had to give you up, but you should know it was the most difficult thing I have ever done. Is that why you wanted to see me? Theron asked. To tell me you made a mistake? I didn't say that, she replied. As hard as it was, giving you up was the right choice. I would do it again. Theron sighed. I understand better than you think, he said, his voice softening. I'm not angry at you. I respect what you did. You made a sacrifice for the sake of the Republic. And for you, Theron, Satil said, coming toward him and placing a hand on his arm. I knew Nagani Zhou would raise you well. You were better off with him than me. Theron didn't shrug her hand away, though he stiffened uncomfortably at her touch. Sensing this, she pulled back, though her serene expression never changed. When I see what you've become, she continued, I know I made the right decision. Nagani Zhou would be proud of you, Theron. I'm proud of you. I don't need your approval, Theron said, though he was careful to keep any venom from coloring his words. Of course not, she said, turning away and walking back to the center of the room before turning to face him again. But you have it anyway. Was there anything else you wanted to say? Theron asked. Master Nostaral and I are leaving tomorrow morning. I know you've been working with Jace Malcolm. You mean my father? I suppose it was inevitable that he would find out, she said. Perhaps I should have told him sooner. That's between you and him, Theron insisted. I'm happy with my life. I'm comfortable with who I am. None of this matters to me. But it matters to Jace, she said. You may not hold any bitterness in your heart toward me, but I fear he does. I can see how that might be a problem, Theron said. For the Republic, I mean. He didn't need a report from analytics to understand that anything that might negatively affect the relationship between the leader of the Jedi and the supreme commander of all Republic forces was a potential cause for concern. Jace is a good soldier, Satil assured him. He will not put his personal feelings ahead of his duty and responsibilities. We have that in common. Really? I thought that might be the reason you never told me about him. You didn't think he'd be able to handle the emotional burden of a child. It wasn't that, she said, speaking slowly. I've known Jace for many years. We fought side by side, and we truly cared for each other. But as the war continued, I felt something change in him. I feared he would fall to the dark side. Theron actually laughed out loud. You were afraid Jace Malcolm, the Supreme Commander, would betray the Republic? Of course not, she replied, a hint of frustration poking through her calm exterior. Jace will always be loyal to the Republic, but you do not have to follow the Sith to be an agent of the dark side. Jace is a good man, but the war has left its mark on him. There is so much anger and bitterness inside him, so much hate. Hate leads to the dark side, Theron said, getting the words out before she could. Nagani Zhou taught me all the Jedi platitudes, he added. You mock, but there is truth in our teaching, she chided him. Wow, you sound just like my mother, Theron joked. Jace fights his war out of revenge, she continued, trying to make him see the urgency of her warning. It clouds his judgment. It can make him do terrible things if he believes they are necessary to save the Republic. That doesn't sound so wrong to me, Theron answered. Sometimes the ends justify the means. The dark side is insidious, she warned. Hate will transform you into the very evil that you are fighting so hard against. I know, Master Zhou taught you this lesson, she added softly. He taught me a lot of things, Theron shot back, his blood suddenly boiling. Back when he thought I was going to be a Jedi. But I'm not a Jedi, and neither is my father. It was clear to him now what was going on. Satele was afraid Jace was going to somehow corrupt him, and she was determined to save her son by sharing her glorious wisdom. Her condescending arrogance encapsulated everything that was wrong with the Jedi. Light side, dark side, they're just empty words, he continued, his voice rising to a shout. There are only two sides I care about, us and them, Republic or Empire. It was not my intention to upset you, she said. Of course not, Theron replied. That would mean I was showing some emotion, and we all know there is no emotion, only peace. Right? He waited for Satele to offer another prepackaged Jedi mantra in response, but the Grand Master caught him off guard. Theron, I know you don't want me as part of your life, she said, seemingly abandoning her argument midstream and changing topics. I respect your choice, but you know where to find me if you ever need my help. Reach out to me and I will be there, I promise. Don't hold your breath, Theron said. Are we done here? I have said my piece, she told him. Theron turned his back on her and marched over to the balcony doors. He yanked them open and climbed over the railing, relieved to leave Satele and her insipid Jedi philosophy behind. Satele watched Theron go, hoping she hadn't done more harm than good. The meeting had been a constant battle between the logical part of her mind and the powerful feelings she had felt welling up inside her. She hadn't expected to be so profoundly affected merely from speaking with Theron. Even though he was her biological son, she barely knew him. He wasn't part of her life anymore, not in any real sense, and yet it had taken all her training to deny the emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. The Jedi restriction against family attachments made more sense to her now than ever. She couldn't even fathom how much harder it would have been to remain calm and focused if she had raised Theron herself. All of her feelings would have been magnified 1,000-fold, making it impossible not to respond to his anger with her own. Even now, several minutes after he was gone, she could still feel the effects of their confrontation. Her heart was beating far too rapidly in response to the adrenaline that had flooded her system. There is no emotion, there is peace, she whispered, seeking solace in the same words Theron had thrown in her face. She had hoped that being raised by Nagani Zhou, her old master, would have prepared Theron to better understand and appreciate her fears about Jace, and it was possible he might still heed her warning. Satele suspected her son's anger was more a product of the emotional stress of confronting his mother than a response to her actual arguments. Once he calmed down, there was still a chance he would see her point. Or maybe he just has too much of his father in him. Maybe meeting Theron was a mistake. Maybe she had made things worse. Maybe she was wrong to speak with Theron behind his father's back. Because of their history, she tried to keep her relationship with Jace strictly professional. By focusing exclusively on their duties to the Republic, they avoided dredging up painful memories and feelings, but maybe denying their past wasn't always the answer. Maybe it was time to talk to Jace, not as Grand Master to Supreme Commander, but as a man and a woman who had once shared a deep and powerful love. Satele shook her head. She was restless and unsettled, unable to find a proper sense of calm and balance. She sensed long-denied memories creeping around the edges of her consciousness, awakened by Theron's presence. Instead of pushing them away, as she had so often done in the past, she closed her eyes and sat down cross-legged on the floor, opening herself to them. Painful as they were, she needed to accept and acknowledge their existence if she hoped to focus and still her racing thoughts. So then it switches to all italics, so I'm assuming this is the memory. Jace's command tent was a buzz of activity, with soldiers rushing in and out, delivering status reports to the newly promoted general and relaying his orders to his troops. He was standing over a small table looking over a map of the battlefield covered with red and blue markers indicating the respective position of enemy and allied troops. "General Malcolm," Satele said as she entered the tent and approached the table, "I need to speak with you. Alone." She could have waited until evening fell. Most nights Jace still managed to slip away and see her in private, but what she had to say couldn't wait. So far they had managed to keep their love and their 6-month affair secret. Approaching him in the open lacked discretion, but it wasn't unheard of for a Republic general and a Jedi Master to discuss strategy in private, so her request wasn't likely to raise any suspicions. "You heard Master Shan," Jace barked. "Clear out." The soldiers in the tent, along with the half-dozen officers who served as their advisors in the field, moved with typical military precision and efficiency, emptying the tent in a matter of seconds. "What is it, Satele?" Jace asked, dropping the formal address he'd used in front of the others. She heard the worry and concern in his tone. She hadn't told him she was pregnant yet. She'd only sensed the days-old life growing inside her because of her powerful connection with the Force. It would be months before her body began to show any physical signs of her condition. Jace must have read something in her expression. After 6 months of sharing their most intimate moments, it was difficult to hide anything from each other. But Satele hadn't come to tell him about the pregnancy. Not yet. There was something else she had to deal with first. "I've heard you're sending troops up into the mountains to search for the Imperials who fled the battle." Jace nodded. "Some of them surrendered when we broke their ranks, but most of them are trying to make their way over to the spaceports near Gel Matar so they can escape off-world." "Let them go," Satele said. "You don't need to hunt them down like animals. If they surrender to the patrols, we won't do them any harm." "They don't know that," Satele reminded him. "They will fight out of fear for their lives, and your people will have no choice but to fight back. Call off the patrols, and many lives will be spared." "I'm not going to let enemy soldiers get away and go back to the Empire just so we can face them in another battle on some other world," he protested. "How many of them will actually return to the Empire?" Satele countered. "Most of them will slink off to other worlds and disappear into civilian life." "I disagree," he said, "and it's my decision, not yours." "This decision is guided by anger and hate," Satele warned him. "Of course it is," Jace shouted. "You've seen what they're capable of. You've seen the death and horror they've unleashed on innocent worlds. We're supposed to hate them. They're the enemy." There was a sudden silence, the fury of his words momentarily shocking them both into silence. Then Jace came around from behind his table and placed his hands on Satele's shoulders. "I'm sorry, Satele. I didn't mean that the way it sounded, but I can't do what you do. I can't just brush away all the pain the Empire has caused." "Revenge won't ease that pain, Jace. When the war first started, I used to keep a list of every friend I'd seen die in battle," Jace told her. "I'd recite their names each night before I went to sleep, trying to remember their faces, clinging to their memories. As the war dragged on, the list grew longer. After a few years, it was too long for me to recite each night. Then it became too long for me to even remember them all. Hundreds and hundreds of good men and women, their lives taken by the Empire. And every Imperial soldier that isn't captured or killed is someone who might add another name to that list," Jace continued. "That's why I have to send out my patrols. That's why we have to hunt the enemy down like animals. I owe it to the names on that list." Satele remained silent as he spoke, but his words filled her with horror and dread. She knew Jace was loyal, but she'd never imagined his loyalty to his fallen friends would be the catalyst for so much anger. "Killing Imperials can't bring back the people on the list," she told him. "Killing Imperials is how we win this war," he told her. "And winning the war is the only way to stop adding names to my list." "This is a dangerous path, Jace. You're taking the love for your friends and turning it into something dark and twisted, something that will drive you to evil." "We don't see things the same way," Jace explained. "I'm not a Jedi." "What if something happens to me?" Satele wondered. "What happens if one day you add my name to your list? Silently, she added, or your child's. Jace's expression was grim. I'd rain destruction down on the Empire, he said quietly. I'd destroy their cities and burn their worlds. That's not what I would want. I know, Jace answered, but I can't help who I am. After a few seconds, he added, and I don't think we're really that different. If something happened to me, I don't believe you would pretend it didn't matter. I think in your grief and anger, you'd lash out at the Empire, too. That's not the Jedi way, she said. But even as she spoke the words, she wondered if Jace was right. How could she not hate the Empire if they took away the man she loved? How could she not hate them if they had the blood of her unborn child on their hands? I'm not a soldier, she said, her voice uncertain as she took a step back from him. I'm a Jedi. It's okay, Satele, Jace said, stepping toward her and extending his hand. She turned and rushed from the tent, ignoring him as she called out for her to wait. She fled beyond the perimeter of the camp and into the cover of the night's darkness, where she finally stopped and collapsed on the ground. Her breath was coming in ragged gasps that quickly turned into hitching sobs as she was drowned in a flood of powerful emotions. The tears came next, and she didn't try to stop them. She cried for several minutes before slowly collecting herself. The flow of tears dried up, and her sobs became a soothing rhythm of inhale-exhale. She recognized that part of her reaction was due to the hormones coursing through her pregnant body, and some of it was due to her still struggling to accept the fact that she was going to have a child, but that couldn't explain everything away. She had sensed the hate and darkness inside Jace before, though it had taken the impending birth of her child to make her confront him about it. What she hadn't realized was that the same potential for hate and anger lurked inside her as well. Her feelings for Jace were too strong. If something happened to him, she feared all her Jedi training wouldn't be able to save her from seeking vengeance against the Empire. With her child, she knew it would be even worse. This path leads to the dark side, she said, and in that moment of clarity, Satele knew what she had to do. Satele opened her eyes as the memories faded away. They still hurt even 3 decades later. As much as she wanted to believe she could master and control her emotions, when it came to Theron and Jace, she had to recognize that it simply wasn't possible. They would always evoke a powerful reaction in her. It was a weakness she had to acknowledge. If she was to confront Jace about his potentially harmful influence on their son, it would only make things worse. Like Theron, he would react to her interference with anger, and she would inevitably respond in kind. Better not to get involved any further. She had cut them out of her life for a reason. It was the only way she could fully serve the Republic. She had sacrificed her chance to have a family and an ordinary life when she chose the Order, and as hard as it was, she couldn't go back on that decision now. Well, yeah, especially as the Grand Master of the Order. That is the end of that chapter. So, that takes us to chapter 20 for next time, and hopefully I won't miss another week. It just Mondays can be a little difficult. So anyway, let's see who is around. Do we want to raid someone? Some Count BB. Well, yeah, let's go on over to Mr. Blitzer. Let's see how long he's been on first. Well, he's only been on for 3 hours. He's usually on for a lot longer than that, so I'll take us on over there. Bear with me for just a minute or two while I do that, and I will see you over there.
Shattered skies, watching some peace of mind. Not much luck I've had, but more sophisticated.